else culture. Negatively, ethnocentrism is also the belief that one's own cultural rules are the best and often better than other cultures. Ethnocentrism had advantage and disadvantage. First is advantage. Develop love for the nation, culture, tradition, and values, generating pride and self-confidence. Create feeling of belonging and unity. Second is disadvantage. Blind faith in one's culture. Disliking or making false judgment on other culture. Discrimination due to difference in beliefs. Ethnocentrism can cause negatively consequences. Even thought we deny it, most of us are ethnocentric in some part of our lives. Some not even realizing that they are being ethnocentric at the moment. Let me show you some example of ethnocentrism. First is the United States eating cow as food is a common practice. In the India, the cows sacred animals and cannot be eaten. The next is think of the utensils different culture prefer to use. Some cultures prefer to use fork, spoons, and knife to eat and may have the belief that it is weird or incorrect. U.S. culture and values. U.S. culture values and everything else are better than other nations.
Some dimension of someone. Characteristics of the individual with the eccentric. The culture elements are all the parts that make up that culture of the people, country, or region together with the natural elements. They give shape, cohesion, and identity in the societies and allow their clear identification and definition with respect to others. What are the culture elements? Culture elements are then all models pattern of the experience of the society that relate uniquely and then conceptualize their behavior. Why? Of the begin in taking it in clothes, custom, rituals, and beliefs, as well clothing, food, and other items. It is important to note that culture elements are not static in the dynastic in mainly due to the culture elements as a normal and acceptable to all. These architectures discuss the three rules that define and expand negative intrigue attitudes. The anthropology of the culture mentioned to the stunting the sociology of how difference in a group position are justified in the ideology and the society. The goal is to integrate those apologies into the society indicatory. It's a use as a frame for this integration. The argument developed in a group values are used for intergroup differentiation and sanity. This leads to the information believe the other culture and the environment. Shared culture values and symbols more intricate the groups in the United States have distinctive culture and values that are the complex and limiting banks. 1999, this can be result of the interaction of the original culture with host culture in the United States from institution greatly respond. Intelligently and sense of the people common sense of the unity result from a shared history, and correct experience. Bank 1999 in Groups 10. Look at other cultures, elements as inferior and acceptable. The major elements of the culture are symbol language, normal, various, and attracts. Language makes effective social interaction, possibly in the influence how the people concern of the concept and object major values that recently the United States include individuals' communication.
Alex. My name is Ronalyn Alim from 12 Class 1 Batch 2. This is my part of our report in Group 4 UCSP. What I will report is about the short explanation of what was assigned to me and the short summary of cultural relativism and ethnocentrism. First, June of 2016 made some observations on how to address this growing concern on Filipino ethnocentrism. Number 1, identify indigenous culture that truly reflects Filipino identity. Number 2, eliminate foreign influences and stick to homegrown practices. Number 3, if we want to settle our identity, we must accept the good part of the foreign influences that come to us. In this part, the Philippines' history and identity, the very cultural imperialism that towards nation building, nature land, or are reluctant to identify with its inhabitants. Filipinos should look towards the aspects of Filipino culture. This means excising foreign influences and sticking only to what's homegrown. Basically, it's ethnocentrism. For example, look at some mass media representing indigenous Filipinos. Next, although colonization by the Spaniards, Americans, and Japanese has caused a shift in several of our cultural, social, political, and economic policies, it made the Philippines a single nation. Thus, the Philippines today stands strongly behind our acceptance of our Filipino identity, marked by our appreciation by foreign influences. Truly, it is difficult to do away with these influences, because if we will totally disregard them, we will run the risk of being left with nothing but purely our own native culture and tradition that may alienate us from the globalized world. We need to acknowledge their part in the richness of the tapestry that is Filipino culture. Let's proceed to the summary of the cultural relativism. Cultural relativism refers to not judging a culture to our own standards of what is right or wrong, strange or normal. Instead, we should try to understand cultural practices of other groups on its own cultural context. Cultural relativism, on the other hand, believes that culture is understood best through its own people. Now, what is the importance of cultural relativism and ethnocentrism? Cultural relativism addresses other people in light of those people's culture. Major issues can arise from ethnocentrism as peoples can be dehumanized if their culture is not respected. Issues may also arise from relativism, because some cultures have inequalities and cause harm a part of their traditions and norms. And for ethnocentrism naman is ethnocentrism compares other cultures by using a group's specific culture as the basis of that comparison, believing theirs to be superior and the standards to be used in comparison to other cultures. And that's all. Thank you.